Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast where we talk about motivation, experiences, and explore what the world has to offer. We're the Thomas Brothers. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jared.
And today we have an awesome guest for you. His name is Benner Call. He was in the 82nd Airborne Infantry in the Army had been in the Army for 8 years. We're going to hear about some of his experiences from doing show of force in Korea on the border to doing recon in Afghanistan along the border. So it's going to be a great podcast for you today.
Yeah, look forward to it.
All right, let's do it.
You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
We will not go quietly into the night.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
I am the one who knocks.
Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to the call today, Benner. We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and share some of your life experiences and some of the stuff that you've been through and everything. So I guess maybe let's just start off real quick. Can you maybe give an introduction of yourself and just let us know about you and just a brief introduction, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, my name's Benner Call. I'm originally from Danville, California, which is just outside of Oakland, about 20-30 minutes inland. So I spent some time in the Bay Area. I ended up going to Utah Valley University for a few months before leaving on a religious sabbatical for 2 years to Leon, Mexico.
Which is where we met. Yep.
Yep. Which was fun. Good times in Leon. And then once I returned home, I spent about a year in college and then went on to enlist in the Army. Spent 8 years in the military, had some fun experiences there, and ended up transitioning out here recently, about a year. And now I'm going to school at the University of North Texas.
Cool. So I wanted to ask you,
First off, thank you for your service.
yes.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I wanted to ask you, after we were in Mexico together, you came back, you went to school for a little bit. What was that motivation to join the Army? Had that been always something you always wanted to do, or what was the...
So it never really was something that was like pertinent on my mind to join. I knew that the military was always an option on the table. I had a few friends join. I had friends that had served and passed, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that type of job. And then I talked to a friend who I was actually trying to be a firefighter in college, studying fire science at UVU or Utah Valley University.
Yeah. And
he suggested, hey, if you want some work experience, think about the Army, think about the military. And so I said, okay, thought about it. And I probably thought about it for about a good 6-7 months. And then after I got accepted into the fire academy, they changed their standards on how they accepted candidates for the fire academy. I needed a higher level math, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to join the military. Yeah, I don't know why I needed a higher level math to learn how to put water on fire.
Yeah.
So I ended up enlisting in the Army, doing the delayed entry program as an enlisted soldier. I entered in as a private first class.
Okay.
And then once I hit January, shipped off to Fort Benning, Georgia, and that's where my adventure started.
That was for boot camp.
Basic training.
Oh, basic
boot camp
training.
is what the Marines and Navy do.
Awesome.
So is it basic training is similar to like a boot camp, right?
Yeah, it's basically kind of like, hey, this is the introduction to the Army. You're going to get yelled at. Figure it out.
Well, of all the times to be in Georgia, January is a good time.
It was. we had like crazy weather that year too. We had like severe thunderstorms and like typhoons coming in, and we're just like, all right, we don't know what to do. Just tell us where we go.
Oh man.
Wow.
So what was that like? Was it, you're kind of gone in the modern world, you see like these movies like, what is that one? Like Full Metal jacket where the guy's like yelling at him and he's like, you.
I think that was the Vietnam War, but yeah, that was a while
there's
ago,
just like so many ones, but these Major Payne. That's one I always liked.
Yeah, Major Payne's always a good one. That's like JROTC what they do.
Yeah.
But like with Full Metal Jacket, it's interesting because it's kind of a Marine thing that they do.
Uh-huh.
They still wear the brown rim hats. You're still getting yelled at, standing at attention, having to do obstacle courses. It's basically kind of like, hey, this is the physical assessment of the Army. Figure it out. And if you can't do it, well, then you got to figure it out eventually.
Or
How
we'll
long
sign
is-
you something easy.
Yeah. How long was that
Yeah,
process?
right.
How long was the process? How long was basic?
So basic training was 3 months. And so most of the guys that when you're at basic training with, you know what your job is in the Army. So I enlisted as an infantryman.
And that's what
really
your MOS, is that what that's called? Your
So my MOS was 11 Bravo. That's like your nomenclature for that job. The title of it is infantry.
okay.
And so basically you're going in with everybody being infantry. So they understand things, but I didn't know anything about the Army. So I knew like, oh yeah, I shoot an AR-15, but it's not an AR-15, it's an M4.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's going to be like Band of Brothers. It's going to be I'm wearing greens all the time. No.
Why did you choose the Army over the Marines or Navy SEAL or like the
Air
Navy
Force
or Air
or-
Force? Yeah.
So I didn't really want to join the Navy because it just didn't really intrigue me. And I think their office was closed at the time.
Their loss. Their loss.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Marines, I said, no, I'm just not that interested in them. I had friends go that had gone to Afghanistan and Iraq and passed away by stepping on IEDs and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't want to go down that route. I want to do the Army. And then I didn't think I saw the Air Force office that day.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah. Sometimes it's it's good.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah, exactly.
So other than basic, I guess after that 3 months, what happened after that? Was there additional specialty training that you did, or were there any additional courses, or was it you went right into deployment or whatever that may be?
Yeah, and how'd you get into the Airborne regiment? 86, right? You said
82nd.
82nd. Okay.
So what I ended up doing is that after basic training, they send you to what's called advanced individual training, which is where they teach you sort of like the ins and outs of your job. So for me, it was learning basic infantry tactics, squad level movements, team level movements, vehicle movements, how to clear rooms, clear buildings, dealing with all sorts of different stuff. Just sort of like, the crawl, walk, run phase of what they give you.
Yeah.
And so I found out that I was going to be stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. Probably the worst place to get stationed to your first duty station. And while I was there, we did a bunch of different tours. We did what's called the Pacific Pathways, which is where they send you out via airplane on a boat. And you go tour different countries and do training with them.
Oh, really?
So
to teach them, or just to train with them?
Just to train with them.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, when I did my first Pacific Pathways, I just did the Army's jungle warfare course.
Oh,
and
nice.
so I had that experience going forward. And I had worked on Army communication systems, with satellite communications, bouncing radio waves off of satellites to a different part of the country. And that we used most of that in Korea, communicating with helicopters, vehicles, just showing them where we want their rounds to be placed, where people should be moving. And then when I went airborne was when I signed a new contract with the Army and ended up going back to Fort Benning for 5 weeks and learning how to fall out of planes.
Oh, cool. Going back to one thing you said about Korea, did you ever do those border operation, show of force kind of things?
Yes, we did the show of force. We actually made it in the newspaper. We were on CNN.
That doesn't mean much.
Right. But it was when, I think it was when Kim Jong-il was still alive. We we didn't really understand the rules of what was supposed to be going on at the time with South Korea and the different rules they had. Apparently, you're not allowed to shoot after midnight, and we shot till about 3:30 in the morning.
Are you shooting real rounds or just fake rounds?
Yeah, real rounds.
Oh, okay.
And it was 3:30 in the morning, and we were at a camp called Camp Rodriguez, which is, I think it's like 2-3 miles from North Korea. And how you get there, if I remember right, we had to cross a bridge. No, that was Warrior Base we were at. Yeah, Warrior Base. And how to get there, if I remember right, we had to cross a bridge that was like rigged with explosives. And it was like during a high tension with North Korea too, if I remember right. Because it was under the Obama administration. And they were like just trying to figure things out. Nothing was going right. And they were always upset whenever soldiers got closer to the border. And we had guys get to go to places. Some guys got to go to the DMZ, some guys, or the demilitarized zone. Some guys went to Korea, or Seoul, Korea. I'm trying to think, what else did we do that was fun out there? And the DMZ was really interesting. So basically, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Talk about DMZ, yeah.
So the DMZ, South Korea has a town on one side and North Korea has a town on the other. They look identical, but the North Korean side is bigger. It's like a play of power they have that North Korea has to do everything bigger than South Korea. It's weird.
Is there like a dead zone between, I mean, there's like fences and stuff on the border, or is it like actually pretty close?
It is the border. So where President Trump met Kim Jong-un and like shook his hand and walked into North Korea, that's the border. He walked right in.
Yeah, isn't it like there's like the lines in the middle of the buildings where like it's like the middle of a factory and it's like, well, you can work in this building, but like, why? You think that they would just tear the whole town down and just build a border that you could never cross?
Then you invaded their country, and they get offended by that.
Well, they would. Each side would do that. You know, they would just say, "We're going to tear this whole town down and just move the border back like 2 miles."
They're very picky and very prideful in their standings and in their country. Like the people aren't, but the dictatorship is.
It's just very political.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So like certain things will set
right?
them off. Rocket Boy, yeah. Like we went into one room that was designated the South Korean side, which just has a long table and there's a phone in the middle where the South Korean president sits. And in the other building, there's another table that's the North Korean side that we weren't allowed to go into. And we couldn't go there in like uniform or anything. We had to be in civilian clothes. Or normal clothes, and like you can see, like they take you down to where the North Koreans try to dig an underground tunnel, and they say in their like little, what's it called? Their little briefing that they started hearing the ground moving underneath them, and that's when they discovered the North Koreans digging underneath to enter their country.
Wow. Were they people trying to escape, or was it like the government trying to get in somehow, or? Huh.
Yep, they were trying to invade secretly South Korea.
Wow.
That happens all the time on the southern border of the United States.
Right. And like you'll see balloons, and they'll like it's just a random balloon floating across the sky to North Korea. And like if you look close enough at them, some of them have like USBs. I've heard some they send over with animals.
Really, like pirated,
or like food,
American DVDs and stuff.
Yeah. They just send them on a USB drive because they don't get that information.
Yeah,
they don't have the internet. Crazy. Like the U.S. has blocked off their country from internet.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I guess that's communism, right?
It's one of the effects of it.
Yeah, one of the effects of it, I guess.
So I know. So you said you did some other tours in the Pacific, just kind of training with other people. What was it like training with these other countries? I mean, like I would say the American military machine is like top notch of the world, and you're dealing with some of these guys in these other countries. I mean, Korea, they're probably legit because we fund them for basically everything. But like, you ever just deal with like real amateurs, and you're like, man, what are we doing training with these people?
So it's different. Like they see things differently because some of them are constantly preparing for like their own country's upheaval. So like Singapore is preparing for China. The Philippines is preparing for like their own terrorist attacks in there. Australia is preparing for different warfare that they have. And same thing with the United States. We prepare for, the future of warfare, which could be a numerous amount of different countries that we have. And so like, I remember one time we were training, I don't know, what's that? So we call it a tropia in the military. If you ever see somebody that wears like a tropia veteran shirt, it's because a tropia is a made up country that we always use in the military.
Kind of like a widget, right?
Yeah, it's like our own go-to country. And so like Atropia can be anywhere from an urban environment to a dry desert to anything. It's crazy what we do with Atropia, and Atropia is crazy.
Huh.
But most countries are pretty good with what they do. It's just getting them to accept that somebody else is teaching them that is not of their culture. They look at Americans and say, "Oh, you're great, but you're not like us."
There's probably a massive language barrier too.
Yeah, and they give you interpreters and everything. With the Thai Army, after you're done training with them, they do what's called like, I'm trying to remember the actual term for it, but they do what's like you basically kill a king cobra and you drink its blood.
Dang.
Did you do that?
Yeah. No,
I
did not.
was gonna say that's pretty crazy. That's pretty... in the Thai army. That's their
That's like their go-to thing. They love it. They go crazy for it with Americans.
I heard that for the Green Beret, when you become a Green Beret, this guy, not a professor, a teacher in high school told me this. He was this giant guy. He was a Green Beret. He said that they gave him a salamander and a beer, and they had him swallow the salamander and keep it down with a beer. And that was like the last thing he had to do before he became a Green Beret.
I've never heard that. I have a few buddies that are Green Berets. I'll have to.
They must have retired the salamander procedure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that guy was probably in his late 50s
at the time. Yeah,
20 years ago.
Jeez.
But so you said you were in the Pacific for a while, and then you re-enlisted. Was that 4 years, and then you re-enlisted again after that 4 years, and then you had another 4 years, or is that? And then So when you got to that point and you started, as you said, falling out of airplanes. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, and that's kind of where the airborne part came in. How did you get to that point? What made you decide to go that way?
So in the military, you have like a bunch of leaders, and you look at what makes them good leaders. Of course you think, oh, it's the leadership qualities they have. But one thing that sets you apart in the military is the schools you attend. Similar to kind of how it is in like normal work. In like the civilian side, you attend certain courses, get certain certificates. So that's how it is with the military and being infantry. And so I had qualified to be air assault at the time, which is where you get to rappel out of helicopters, and fast rope out of helicopters, which is where you're not like hooked into anything and you get to grab this rope that they send out and you just basically slide down.
Yeah.
And then at Airborne School, they teach you basically how to fall properly and hopefully not break your legs with a parachute.
Yeah.
And you're dropping from about 1,200 to 1,400 feet. And at Airborne School, you do 5 jumps. You do 3-day jumps and 2-night jumps. And it's with different stuff. It's fun.
I saw a band of brothers, and back in the day, they hook up like this, and then they go and they go out the door, and immediately they're shoot pulls. Is that the same way?
No.
How do they do it now?
So now what happens is that you still have that same static line. You hook up, and as you're going, somebody takes your static line, and then you jump. You turn towards the door. You step out, and you're supposed to count to 6,000. And if your chute doesn't open after 6,000, then you have to figure out what's going on.
Or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Pull your backup chute or something.
And you do have a backup chute, but sometimes that doesn't work, or sometimes you're being dragged by the aircraft.
So how many times did you jump? I know you said 5 in school. Did you jump?
I have 37 jumps in
Wow.
2 years.
Wow. Did you ever have anything go wrong?
Did you ever get
or-
dragged by the aircraft? I want to understand more what that means.
So basically what can happen is that your static line can get caught in a corner of the aircraft, or that it's knotted up in the air, or knotted up in your parachute carrier, and you can't unhook it or anything, and you can't do anything because the people inside don't know you're stuck because they're dealing with, I think the most I've jumped at one time is like 275 people.
Oh, wow.
We've all jumped out. And you just have to wait until you either get pulled back in, or your chute opens up and you fall.
Has anything ever
And you
happened?
open up your reserve.
Has anything ever happened to you?
No, the craziest thing that's ever happened to me is that I almost hit a vehicle. I think I was like a foot away from landing right on it, right on the hood of a Humvee, a Hummer basically. We had guys, I've had friends get their static line, what they use to connect, wrapped around their arm. They've torn their bicep, torn their uniform. I've had friends land in the trees. I landed in a small river once. And that was terrifying because I was like, I don't know how deep this thing is. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand. And your parachute basically either falls on top of you or falls off to the side.
Yeah, you can
And
drown.
it was a night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a nighttime jump. And I was just like, all right, here I go. Either I'm going down or just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Did you? How much control do you have of your parachute in that type of scenario? I mean, I know you see like a lot of these commercial guys jumping on airplanes and they're doing trick stuff, and you can steer and all that kind of stuff. But in this scenario, are they more just you just fall, and where you fall, or?
So you have what's called risers. It's basically like a little connector to your harness. You don't really have much connection or much control because you're kind of subject to the wind and thermals coming off the ground. We had one guy stuck in the air for like 2 minutes because he was stuck in a thermal, which is just heat coming off the ground, and he got caught up in his chute.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to try to get out of it. But he didn't realize he was stuck in it because he's like, I think he was at like,
He was enjoying the view.
yeah, he was at like 700 feet and he can't hear us, but he's seeing all of us fall faster than him.
Basically, it's like
So
a hot
he
air
should-
balloon. It's like the
Yeah.
hot air is coming up into your parachute and lifting you up.
Exactly. And you just have to try to maneuver yourself out of it if there's wind.
Yeah. So you said you did quite a bit of jumps. Did you do any obviously probably many of those were training jumps, but did you do any into like, I know you said you served some time in Afghanistan. We haven't gotten to that part of your story yet, but did you jump any in Afghanistan?
So they don't do any more combat jumps in Afghanistan. They mostly use it for initial invasions or airfield seizures. So like I had a leader one time. He had jumped into Kosovo, Iraq, and I think he jumped into Desert Storm. But we don't, because Afghanistan is already mostly controlled by, or was mostly controlled by the U.S. We don't jump anymore in there.
There wasn't a need for it because you could just transport in, land at an airfield, and you'd be there.
Exactly, unless they wanted you to jump for fun. But even then, the rocks, if I'm remembering right, the rocks were so sharp. I went through like 3 or 4 pairs of workout shoes because the rocks just like tore through them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about more about your experience. And so how long after you got in Airborne School did you go to Afghanistan? And what did you do over there?
So after Airborne School, I spent about a little less than a year at Fort Bragg. And then, so I had my daughter. My daughter was born, and they told me I wasn't going to be deploying if I even made it out on the plane. And then we had just celebrated the 4th of July. So my daughter was a month old at the time. And July 5th comes around. I'm about to show up for morning formation, and I get a phone call, and they say, "Hey, are your bags still packed or ready to go to Afghanistan?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, you haven't told me really much else, so I just left them packed because you never know.
Yeah.
And they said, all right, your flight leaves in 10 hours.
Oh, man.
Get ready.
That's a hard conversation to have with your wife.
Yeah, that was a very fun conversation. We had just had our newborn, and luckily enough, my mother was in town visiting. And so, we
You're like,
packed up my
so
things.
do you remember my job? Matt, remember how they were going to have me go to Afghanistan? So about that.
Yeah, and I basically had to load up, get on a plane on the 5th of July for the 4th of July, and ship out to Afghanistan. It was me and another person. We shipped out to Afghanistan. We didn't have rifles. We didn't have ammo. All of our stuff was supposedly already there in Afghanistan. And the only people that were in charge of us was us at the time. We didn't know anybody. We didn't know where we were going, who we were going with. We just knew we needed to get to this one place where the rest of our guys were at, which was Camp Dwyer in Afghanistan. It is this tiny little hole in the wall base that if you looked at it, you would be like, there's actual people that are living here. Yeah. So on most posts, you have like a decent size, like, I don't want to say shopping center, but you have like an area to be able to go buy like toiletries.
Like
and
a
stuff.
Commissary, right?
Yes, a commissary.
Yeah.
Ours was a truck trailer that they changed to be a commissary. So it was one hallway, and that was it.
It's always out of stock.
Yeah.
Exactly, and everything else you ordered off of Amazon if you got it.
Really?
Yeah. We ordered a lot of stuff off of Amazon just to like have things, bedding, supplements, clothes, anything we could get from Amazon, they would ship to us.
So being in a small, I guess it's considered a base at that point.
Yeah.
Being in a small base, does that mean maybe it was closer to combat, or was it just kind of in maybe a more remote area, or?
So during the time we were there, it was supposed to be what was considered a peaceful time between the Taliban and the U.S. So where the base is, about 4 or 5 miles from us, there was a river that divided the two states between the Taliban and the United States. They don't really talk about it much because President Obama said, hey, you stay on your side of the land, we'll stay on ours, and we won't engage you if you don't engage us. And so basically what we would do most of the time is that we would go out, go up on the hillside, and see what's going on with them across the river, see if there's anything weird going on. And so sometimes they would pop up on the radio saying, hey, I'm trying to think of how to say this properly. You crazy guys, if you're going to do something, we're going to harass your mothers and such. And they would come back, oh, you're with the Americans, blah, blah, blah. They'd yell at us. And then they wouldn't do anything. With the previous units, they would just go across the river and just engage them as much as they could to push them back.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so this is one detail I forgot. And before I got to my base, we had gone to 3 different bases before I got there. So I had gone, 2 different bases. I went to what's called Bagram Airfield, which is, if you've seen Lone Survivor, that's where it starts with them in Afghanistan. And then I went to Bagram, and then I went to Kandahar. And Kandahar is like the main hub of where all the bases are at. It's one of the largest bases that we have in Afghanistan. And basically, after we got to Kandahar, we had already been in country about 2 weeks with no weapons, no ammo, no nothing. Yeah. And I think it was like our first night there. That's when we first got our like initial baptism of fire. And we start hearing the sirens going off, and we're like, okay, what's happening? What are we going to do? And all of a sudden we start hearing this whistling. If you hear a whistle, that means a big round's coming in, and you really don't have much time to get away from it. And we hear the whistling, and all of a sudden it's just like a loud explosions. We had about 3 or 4 rounds come in that night of, I want to say it was like 80 millimeter rocket propelled grenades coming in from the Taliban. and our missile system missed them. They missed shooting them down because they were so small.
Yeah.
And so that happened, and they hit the Georgian base. And on Kandahar, they have like 4 or 5 different countries that are stationed there. They have like the Aussies, the Georgians, the Kenyans, and us. And I think the Germans.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't think that. The Kenyans are there?
Yeah, they're just there to pull security.
Oh.
They send like 12 of them.
Oh, okay. I was going to say. I didn't realize that there was a Kenyan force.
they get it for experience.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And so like even with like laundry services and other like leisures that they have on bases, they are all contracted out to either locals or foreign countries. And so the lady who did our laundry at Dwyer, she was a Kenyan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had our own laundry service at Dwyer. I know that sounds terrible to say, but like they did our laundry because we don't have washer dryers on our own.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So you're there and you're just kind of making sure that these guys stay on their side of the river the whole time? I mean, how long were you there?
So I was there 3 months. And then while I was there, I was selected to be part of what's called the Warrant Officer Candidate School to go to the U.S. Army Flight School in Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Oh, nice.
And so I got to go fly helicopters while I was in. That's better said. And it was like this big ordeal to try to get me out of country. I spent 3 months in country. We had camel spiders, pit vipers, wild dogs, wild cats, camel herds. Yeah, it was crazy, but it was fun.
Jeez. It's just crazy stuff that you never see, living in the U.S.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess
you'll see some of that in Mexico, though.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Probably
you don't have to worry about social media. You don't have to worry about all sorts of stuff, and life is just simpler.
Yeah.
And maybe this is more of a personal question. How was communication with your family whenever you're at that smaller base? I mean, did you have internet or satellite phones or something? How'd you communicate with your wife?
So they had an internet service that was outsourced to a company here in Texas. And the internet service you had to pay for, it was spotty, and you had to figure out what times of the day you could use it because it got so hot. It rained one time while we were there. And it was 127 degree heat every single day in the middle of the day.
Wow.
I feel sorry for the lady that had to wash you guys' clothes.
Well, she was in a nice air conditioned building, but she was really nice.
I guess that's true. But 120 degrees, there's a lot of sweating going around, especially if you're hiking up hills and everything else.
Yeah,
a lot of swassing going on.
Yeah,
and it was just a fun time. I'm trying to think with the internet communication wise. I had a laptop and I had my phone, but I had to figure out when I could get internet and all that stuff. And so I emailed the company in Texas, and they came out and sent out like 3 or 4 different technicians to come fix the Wi-Fi that we had because it was not working for a while. And so I would use my cell phone service to reach out to her, which is also kind of risky because who's controlling the cell phone service in Afghanistan and all that fun jazz.
Yeah. So you had to like talk in code?
We just couldn't. So we weren't allowed to take pictures.
Oh, okay.
So there was like certain things on the base that we couldn't take pictures of. I think I have like a picture of a sunset, and that's it.
Could you do like a video camera chat with her, or?
Yeah, but I couldn't show her the base.
Okay, yeah.
She could see like
the room.
She could see like the connex I was living in. They turn shipping connexes into rooms. They just divide them in half and say 2 people per room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
interesting. So then you went to helicopter school and you learned how to fly helicopters?
Yeah, and so I went to flight school at Fort Rucker, and they send you to a bunch of different schools while you're there. And that's where I ranked up to become a warrant officer, which is like a technical expert in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, I went to what's called SEER School, which is Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School.
That sounds fun.
It's basically like POW school on steroids.
Oh, geez.
Um,
It's like Rambo
and
school, man. They just send you out in the woods with a knife.
that, yeah, we did that. And that's it. And like they send Green Berets, they send pilots, they send Rangers, they send whoever they can to it.
Is that like in case you get shot down somewhere or something like that, or
Yeah.
captured and you have to evade and escape and things like that?
Yep, and you have to learn to survive off the land because you don't know when trouble is or help is coming. And it's a fun course.
That's cool.
And then I attended flight school, and I selected Blackhawks. And while I was at Blackhawk school, I sustained, or UH-60 Mike school, I sustained an injury where I had to be released from the course. And because of my previous prerequisites, I couldn't change jobs in the Army. And so I had to either go back down in my rank and back to my old job or get out.
Really?
And so I chose to get out, and here I am.
That must have been a hard thing, where you're trying to get... Did you actually get to fly some Blackhawks, or you were doing training, and then did this injury happen because you were doing that?
So the injury happened because I was training.
Yeah.
The vibrations of it hurt my back way too much, and I caused some major damage that I'm recovering still from.
Oh, man.
Like I'm seeing a chiropractor, I'm getting
Steroids.
crazy types of therapy on it, and it's improved, but it doesn't disqualify me from service.
Oh, man.
But I just can't fly anymore.
Yeah.
With that. And so I got to fly the Black Hawk. I met Mike Durant, who was the pilot that got captured in Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down. He comes out, and he's a phenomenal guy, super nice guy. But it's a different breed, a different animal to be a pilot.
Yeah.
Memorizing everything and then flying and then maneuvering and then having to say it while you're flying. It is completely different.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a tough situation. So then at that point, you were like, well, I'm not going to go back, so I might as well just dip out and leave the military altogether.
So was your contract up at that point, or was it medical related, or
So
are you?
So they called it a failure to complete the course.
Okay.
Because I'm not medically discharged, because it wasn't a career-ending injury. It was a job-ending injury. I could still serve, but I couldn't serve in that job.
Yeah.
And I couldn't serve as a warrant officer because I didn't have the prerequisites to be in other warrant officer jobs. Does that make sense? Like I didn't have those certificates to go work in other warrant officer jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the previous rank.
I've heard, obviously Jared and I aren't an expert at the military paths and even the lingo and stuff like that.
No, we're not.
But I've known a couple people that have kind of potentially backed themselves into a corner almost, not purposefully, but you go down a road and then there's a roadblock and it's kind of hard to get away from there, kind of hard to turn around. So
exactly.
At this point, are you back in civilian life, or you said you're going to school right now?
Yeah, so I am a civilian. I am going to school. I'm doing everything to be healthy enough to continue service. So right now, I am trying to create my officer candidate school packet to get back in the Army to be an officer. So instead of being a warrant officer, I'd be an officer, which is like the lieutenants, the captains, majors, and such on. And so with that would allow me to continue my service. I just can't go fly anymore.
Yeah. Well, you probably do a different capacity, come back in. I have a cousin that's a JAG officer in the Air Force, right?
Yeah, we have another cousin who he got a master's in finance. And had I might botch this. I think it's the National Guard paid for his master's degree, and then in turn he served, and he's actually still in service today. So he was in Kuwait for I think almost a year, and so I mean it's just it's it's interesting how many different ways there are to go about military service, whether it's just enlisting or officer program, or even I know the ROTC has a whole program that they go through. So it's just I don't know, interesting.
Yeah. So I guess you talked to us about your military career. You've had some successes, and you've had some situations where you've had some roadblocks come up. What have you learned from your military experiences? Kind of like what keeps you motivated? I know you're like a real. I watch your Instagram. You're a real driven person, and I admire that about you. What keeps you driven? What motivates you to keep going? And if you could just talk about that for a little bit.
So what really is motivating me right now is that, I'm trying to find, I don't want to say I'm trying to find, I found my noble purpose. My purpose, I know what it is. I'm motivated to reach my full potential, and my full potential, I know where it is. And if it's not there, then I have to find it somewhere else.
Can you share
and
that?
So,
can you share with us what that is?
Yeah. So for me, I know my full potential right now is in the Army. If I see myself in the future, my 10 minutes of meditation, I see myself fulfilling my noble and higher purpose in the Army.
Yeah.
Throughout history, it's been known for people to have that higher mental state of finding their purpose.
Yeah.
Whether it be being a psychologist, being a doctor, being in the military, being an accountant, whatever, being president, heck. I feel driven towards this purpose. Not only, is it great for my family, but it's also bettering me and staying focused on accomplishing this goal.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, that's something that I think very few people can find, is that one singular purpose where like, this is what I want to do. I want to focus all my energies on doing this. Have you thought about what you actually want to do when you get back into the military?
I have. There are like 3 or 4 jobs that I have in mind. My top job that I would love to have is I would want to go either field artillery, which is controlling cannons and stuff like that, or I want to go military intelligence, or
that's
back
more of
to infantry.
That's more of a desk job, military intelligence, right?
It can be. It just depends on who you get assigned to. So like I have friends that are assigned to special forces units that work with them and analyzing their intelligence and helping them figure out what the next step is.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I liked what you said. You found that purpose, and you found the path that makes you feel like it's going to allow you to spread your wings and get to where you want to be. I really like that. Kind of a question that I had that went along with what Jared's is, how has your military experience impacted your day-to-day life? I guess, how has the training or the things that you've learned in the military helped improve basically your personal life?
So being in the military, everybody says, oh, you need to be disciplined. You need to figure out what you need to do. You need to make your bed every morning. You need to do these things. And being in the military, yes, I am disciplined enough to figure things out. I think it's Jocko Willink who says, discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
And, I try to be as disciplined as I can, whether it be running a mile to running 5 miles a day. I want to push myself to at least get that first step out the door to make something hard happen. And how it impacts me with my military experience is that I have to figure out my block schedule, and I plan things out so meticulously from, the time I go to bed to the time I wake up to the time I'm going to be at work to my lunch to what I'm having for lunch. My Google Calendar is filled out. My Apple Calendar, it's my Apple Calendar is filled out.
Yeah.
And it makes it so planning is key to everything for me.
That's excellent. Can you maybe share what your morning routine is?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
So I wake up 4:30 in the morning. So I have to leave my phone in another room or else I won't get out of bed. I've tried it several different ways. I was like, oh, okay, maybe if I leave my phone on my nightstand. No, I put my phone in my bathroom next to my sink, so I have to get up out of bed and go to the far side of the room.
And hit the alarm off. Turn the alarm off.
Exactly.
I bet your wife
As
hates
soon as-
that.
So she's gotten used to it by now.
Oh, really? Good.
So I walk in my bathroom, turn off my alarm, and then I grab my phone, head out to my living room, give my morning gratitude. It's roughly 5 to 7 minutes of gratitude. And then I put on my shirt, put on my boots, or not my boots, my shoes. And then I either go for a run or I go work out. And luckily enough, here in Texas, we have our gyms open so I can go to the gym. Either go to the gym or go for a nice cardio run in the mornings. And then I'm normally back by about 6:20, 6:30 in the morning. And that's when I start making my breakfast. I'm having my oatmeal with my peanut butter, a little bit of protein powder, and honey. And then I make my protein shake with it, have it on the go in the car. And then by 8 o'clock, I'm at work and I have my 6-hour block at work. And then I have my lunch about an hour and a half before I get off work. And then I come home, spend about 2-3 hours with the family, depending on certain days. Wednesdays, it's 3 hours. But on Thursdays, I have an hour class after work, so that gets delayed. But my morning routine is very meticulous. Like, I have to do things a certain way, or else I won't get out of bed.
That's great. I think that self-mastery is so important, and that's something that I think is just, I want to just soak all that up from you because me and Ethan have been doing the same. We've been doing the kind of a little bit of a workout challenge between the two of us, and
body and mind.
That's right. Body and mind and spirit too.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think one thing that you said is kind of key. It's that calendar aspect of it. It's writing it down, creating the schedule so that it's not like you wake up in the morning and you're like, well, okay, what am I going to do today? It's already there. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So let's attack it. I like that.
Yeah. And, Sundays, of course, for us, we go to church and all that stuff, but Sundays are my preparation day, are my planning, my meals, talking to my wife, making sure I'm not missing anything crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, hey, this has been awesome. This has been a great conversation. One of the things we want to ask you kind of towards the end here, I know we're getting kind of to the time limit here. So we wanted to ask you about your creed. So a creed is a set of beliefs or aims that guide someone's actions. Would you briefly share with us some of the tenets of your personal creed?
Yeah. So my personal creed, I try to live by, I don't want to say a warrior ethos, but a warrior Zen mentality. I want to be the most respected but most controlled person in a room. Whether it be the phone's going off the hook, shots are being fired, there's a fire in the room, there's a cockroach on the floor, somebody has to be calm and controlled, but willing to do what is necessary at any moment. And the same thing goes for me with school too. I'm in school, but I know when my homework assignments are due. I know I can do them, and I have to do them. Yes, they feel meticulous at times, but I know they're going to be mastery for me in the future. Just like how warriors, and the Spartans and the Aztecs and, the Scottish, they all took time to train. School is a time for me to train.
Yeah.
And this is for me to be better. This is for me to sharpen my skills, to hone down on what I can be.
I like that kind of self-mastery.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's great. I mean, I think that being that guy or gal in the room who's just as confident and able to stay calm under pressure and just use that logic and reason and not let your emotions take control, I think that is very, very powerful.
I think it makes you dependable as well for others. That others can look to you, whether it's a family or friend or service in the community or a church or whatever it is. That people can look for you to help when help is needed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even a good Christian reference, throw it out there. Christ, when he was on the boat and the apostles that were with him and the waves were taking over the ship, what was Christ doing? Taking a nap.
Yeah.
But, they freaked out and Christ said, hey, waves be calm.
Yeah.
Bro, chill. I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great example. Hey, this has been so awesome. I really appreciate you coming on, and this has been a great conversation. I think I've learned a lot. A lot more about military lingo as well. So you've had some awesome experiences, and I wish you, so well in your schooling and going back in the military. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up episode where we interview you later.
I should know if I'm able to get back in February or March.
Great.
Awesome.
I know Jared mentioned you're on Instagram. What's your handle so we can get some
give you a shout out.
Give you a shout out.
So my Instagram handle is BennerCall76, BennerCall 76. And same thing with my Facebook is Benner D Call. The D stands for Denali, like the car or the mountain, whichever people find out first.
Nice.
All right. Well, everybody go look them up. And you can find a Brothers Creed podcast on Instagram as well at a.brothers.creed.
All right. Thanks all. Let's build that creed together.